Well, thank you very much, everyone, for attending today's webinar on optimizing your supply chain to meet some of the challenges that you're all confronted with. So I'm Artis Gallier. I'm the director for the UK and Ireland at Nord France Invest, which is the investment promotion agency for the Hauts-de-France region in the north of France. So a bit of housekeeping before we start. As Joanna said, so this webinar is being recorded, and just a couple of informations on events we're organizing over the next couple of months. On the 18th of April, we're organizing a Port of Calais tour as part of the Short Straits Users Forum that we organize along with our partners RM Boulanger and Unsworth. As you may have already heard of these, they basically allow you to go out to the Port of Calais and basically see how goods are funneled across the border there, and that basically helps you understand everything that you need to do and not do to make sure that, well, to avoid your truck from being blocked at the border. And so we'll have a session at the Port of Calais on the 18th. On the 19th of April, we'll be having a launch event for the UK Business Centre that we're putting in place in Lille. It's basically to allow you to access our network of service providers who have all the information and expertise you need to access in European markets, whether through trade or investments, but also through partnership with a local co-working space company. We're basically allowing any UK company who comes through that business centre to work there for free for 6 months. So quite interesting offering there. And I'll be putting the key information to access both of these events in the chat. Well, I mean, I'll be sending it over to Joanna, who will be putting it through in the chat. So the basic argument for today's webinar is that you've obviously been confronted with multiple challenges over the past few years, not just with Brexit, but also with COVID, with the energy crisis, with the explosion in the cost of raw materials, the cost of shipping, you name it. So here, the argument we want to put forward is that in order to deal with these multiple challenges, you can use the Hauts-de-France region as your ideal gateway to European markets. And through this webinar today, we have multiple experts who have all the right solutions and contacts in their own field to help you solve some of the key problems that you're confronted with. And so the idea is that we'll run through about 5 sessions on specific themes so that they could put forward their own expertise, and then we'll end with a Q&A session. So if you have any point of information or question of clarification, feel free to put it through the chat, and we'll keep sort of the more substantial questions for the Q&A session towards the end. So without further ado, we can start with the smart border, which will be introduced by RM Boulanger and Unsworth. And yeah, so we can move on to the slides now. And yeah, so who's starting on your side? Is it Michael, Anne, Julian?
It's Julian.
Perfect. Please go ahead, Julian.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the smart border and explain as much as we can in a short period of time. Next slide, please. Who are we? We are a customs broker and freight forwarder founded in 1974, and we've grown into a medium-sized £65 million a year turnover, and we're family owned independently, and we have a very strong EU exit team and a fully digitalized process. Next slide. We are members of the Short Straits User Forum, and this was set up and run by UK shippers to streamline the Calais port process and get better engagement from all the Port of Calais. You can join by the link there on the left-hand side, and we have, as Artis mentioned, we have an event on the 18th of April. We're inviting potential clients or interested parties to go on a Calais port tour and see how things work from the driver's point of view from a truck. And the following day, as Artis has already said, we're going to be at the Lille UK Business Centre opening. Next slide, please. This is the details for the Calais port tour on the 18th of April. Just some news there, just flick through that. And some useful information on what's been going on in the EU since Brexit, that the trade in the EU has been growing quite strongly, with the exception of Latvia, Bulgaria and Hungary. However, compared to 2019, exports are down in all markets except for France, the Netherlands, Belgium, Poland, Romania and Lithuania. And you can see the percentage of the changes there. Some countries are doing much less than they were, and others are doing better. So the entire value of the EU top 10, the EU 27 is £6.4 billion. Next slide, please. What we on Boulangerie are doing today is talking to you about DDP, which, if you don't know, stands for Delivered Duty Paid. We're going to show you how that EU buyers would buy from the UK in a way as if the UK was still part of the EU, and you'd have control of all customs operations with only one point of contact. Next slide, please. At Unsworth, we have visibility through our own system called Pathway, which means that all of the exporters from the UK or importers in France could get the live data on where their customs clearance is and where their products are 24/7. Next slide, please. The smart border, what is it? Well, as you probably know, or many of you will know, that the smart border is where the customs information in France is pre-notified by the brokers, and customs clearance takes place when basically the truck is on the ferry or in the tunnel. So you would scan the barcodes given to you by your broker in Dover or Eurotunnel, and then in the crossing, you'll see later on later slides, you'll see that how the drivers know if they're free to go or not. What's important is when you ship is that the drivers match the paperwork, the barcodes correctly, and the smart border system gets triggered by those barcodes. And if the wrong thing is scanned, the things won't pair up, and you won't be able to get in your customs clearance automatically. Next slide, please. The clearance process basically, as you can see, here's a picture of the trucks going through. Paperwork's given to the drivers before departure, and it must be scanned at both the entry and exit points of the journey. And when the driver's on the ferry, he'll see this screen, which if he's got green, that means he's free to go. The goods are in free circulation. Everything's customs cleared. If it's in orange, it means there's a CVEP control or possibly a customs control, and he has to go to that area, the PO3 in Calais, and be processed there. Thank you. Next. The green lane means go. You basically do not stop anywhere when you get off the ferry. You just go straight through and follow the green exit sortie lane and onto the A16 or whatever it is out there straight away. If you've got an orange line, you have to stop. We mentioned earlier about DDP, and I'm going to leave most of it to our colleagues in Evalley, who are our tax advisors. But we've been guiding clients throughout the Brexit process for the past year, streamlining the customs clearance process. And we currently do about 800 declarations daily with the EU. It's growing at the moment. We've just got some new customers, so that would be more or less 1,000 by the end of this month. We check all the paperwork beforehand to make sure that everything is okay. We make the UK export declarations and we manage the EU import declarations, and where applicable, we hold hands with the driver and basically make sure the inspections done in Calais are completely streamlined. We're there ready with the drivers. When we first had Brexit, most people shied away from DDP, as the focus was then making the export as simple as possible for the UK exporters, seeing as it's fairly new, it was new for them. But since then, it's become a very popular solution. A lot of food, particularly, is going out DDP simply because it makes it much easier for the importers to import, and it's exactly the same as if it's coming from an EU country, you know, like between Germany and Poland, for example. So DDP makes buying from you a simple decision for your customers, as they're no longer involved in customs or duty. They just want to take delivery of the products, and DDP makes that possible, and it's working very, very well for exporters in the UK. I'll hand over now to Aaron Boulanger.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Julian. Just a quick point of information for everyone. So we're trying to activate the messages in the chat. So if you have any question or point of clarification, feel free to raise your hand and we'll open your mic so that you can ask the question. So now on to you, Michael and Anne.
Well, thank you very much, Artus, and thanks again for to North France Invest and to Business France for inviting us on this very nice event. Well, we are definitely the bad guys here today. Our company is RMB. Sorry, Artus, but I can't see anything actually. I don't see the slides anymore. I'm not sure it is normal. Do you still see the slide?
So we do. Joanna, so the slides are on, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because
You should
I have a
receive them.
Yeah,
black screen.
Was that
Should I go on?
Was that the
That's
case
true.
just a few minutes ago? Or?
Okay. Well,
maybe try
should
to
go
go on, and
Yeah.
if you have a presentation on your own, just say next slide, and we'll make sure that
All right.
that it keeps
Okay.
on.
So we are the company RMB. We are fiscal representatives. We are based in the very north of France, near Lille, and our company was founded in 1981, employing 35 VAT lovers, as we call them, as VAT is our own passion, and we provide a lot of services that are all related to VAT, and part of these services are VAT audits consultancy. We also register companies for VAT in all the 27 EU member states. We deal with excise duties for companies who export and sell alcoholic beverages in the EU. We also deal with eco contributions and social taxes. And I can tell you that these taxes have become very fashionable over the last years. And we also offer services related to posting of workers in France. I'm not sure where we are now in the slides, as I couldn't
next
see
slide,
anything.
Joanna. So we are what we do. So you go back. Yeah. So you've already gone through what you do. So next slide, Joanna. So now it's why you should consider selling DDP into the EU through France.
All right. Okay. Well, first of all, because your clients, your EU clients, may be very happy to purchase goods that are already put into free circulation into the EU, and that will allow your company to sell your goods as if Brexit never happened. And selling DDP also would allow you to remove all the customs burden and all the administrative burden from your customers in the EU. And on top of this, you keep full control on the supply chain, as selling DDP would allow you to have a full control on everything. One of our biggest arguments also is that our clients all have remained British entities, and our clients had no obligations to set up a permanent establishment or a company into France. And this is made possible when some conditions are met. And one of these conditions is that our clients do not plan to hire people in France or in the EU, so that they would not be considered by the EU tax authorities as being a permanent establishment. If this main condition is met, then any UK company is allowed to use the fiscal representation services. Since 2020, there is a very nice and favorable decision was taken by the French tax authorities that consists in obligating our clients to import their goods without paying the import VAT, and that may seem a little bit surprising, but as a UK company, if you decide to be your own importer of record selling on a DDP basis, you will not pay any import VAT. it is not just a permission that is granted by the French tax authorities. It's even more than this because it's an obligation. There is no way you can pay import VAT into France. And this VAT is actually just reverse charged, collected and deducted in your VAT declarations into France. So it's of course very beneficial for any foreign companies, as no refinancing of VAT is due to the French tax authorities. I believe I could move on to the next slide.
Yep.
Another very interesting thing about France and their relationship with the UK is that France has signed a very interesting tax reciprocity agreement with the UK, and whereby any UK company can register for VAT into France without the need to set up a bank guarantee with the French tax authorities. You may know that this is not the case in Belgium or in the Netherlands, where the Dutch tax authorities would impose the obligation to set up a bank guarantee directly with them. This is not the case in France, thanks to these very interesting tax reciprocity agreements. And the import VAT, as I mentioned, is fully deferred at the time of customs clearance.
Next slide, John.
So the strength in our solution is, well, I could tell you a lot of things about how good are our solutions, but first of all, I would say that our solution would allow you to be your own importer of records, and that would, as Julian mentioned it as well, that would remove all customs and VAT burden from your EU clients, and they would be buying from you as if your company was based in the EU. With one single VAT number, your company would be allowed to supply goods anywhere into the EU from France. That's also very, very beneficial. I'm obviously talking about B2B transactions, but with just one VAT with just one single VAT number, your company would be allowed to sell anywhere in the EU, keeping control on the process from start to end. And I could mention the export and the import customs process, transport, and the invoicing process, because your company, being a UK exporter, would keep on invoicing their clients as if your company was based into the EU. Next slide, please. We've created a dedicated Brexit team, which is at your disposal, and our team will be supporting you in the daily processes. And this Brexit team is in charge of registering your company for VAT, explaining all the regulations about how to invoice your clients, how to collect the evidence that the goods left the French territory, because that's a very important thing when it comes to the VAT exemption. And in case of animal origin products, and a lot of our clients are selling these kinds of products, we provide immediate assistance, and we can communicate directly with the customs or with your preferred customs brokers, so that we can unlock any problematic situation. So working with us means that your company would just have to deal with VAT and just with VAT. And I think was my last slide.
Yep.
No, I don't think so, because I was about to, sorry for that. It's very complicated actually. But how to start selling DDP? We would need to apply for an EU ERI number for your company. You probably already have a UK ERI number, but you would have to have an EU one. And this process is very simple. It takes roughly 24 hours. And we would be your tax representative into France. It means that we would be representing your company to the French tax authorities. and we would take care of all the correspondence that you would have with the French tax authorities. Next slide, please. So our mission would consist in registering your company for VAT. We would prepare and file your French VAT declarations, and we would also continuously assist you with any VAT issues that you may have in the EU. And from our experience, a lot of UK companies have started to deal with their own VAT obligations and have been struggling, namely with some refundable VAT. We can be part of this process as well, being your tax representative or your consultant from a VAT side. I think that's all for me today. Thank you very much for your attention.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Michael. And I mean, one thing I'd really like to insist on what Michael said, because it is very important. Indeed, you're not forced to create a company in France in order to continue trading and access European markets and clients. And you may think that because we're Nord France Invest and we're an investment promotion agency, would be forcing companies to actually do so. Well, we don't, just because, I mean, legally, it's not required, and you can very well continue trading on a DDP basis with fiscal representation, as Michael outlined. The point we want to make is that there's a whole spectrum of things you can do to continue accessing European markets, and that all depends on your own business model and the extent to which you want to control your supply chain. So indeed, if you just want to sell to clients, you can use the format that Michael described. But if you want to go further down and really control your supply chain, have your own warehouse, or like rent your own warehouse and have your own sort of local team, whether sales team or like a commercial team with marketing, etc., then indeed, well, you would be creating a company for that. And it's really the whole spectrum of solutions that we want to present today. So thanks a lot, Michael. And moving on to
excuse me, Artus. Sylvie Gens has a question. Maybe.
Yeah, Sylvie, go ahead.
My question is about the correlation between the DDP and the VAT registration process. The DTP selling does not refrain from being listed in the VAT registration process. It's two different things to be able to import or to export.
Yes, it's two different things, absolutely. However, over since 2020, any foreign company that is willing to import goods into the EU has the obligation to register for VAT into France, just in order to be allowed to import goods into the EU. So it's an obligation to register for VAT. And
So the DDP does not lead to a non-registration. We have to be registered.
Absolutely, you have to be registered. However, the DDP is just the Incoterm, just a way you agree with your client to sell your goods. It does not trigger to a VAT registration in every EU member state, but in France, it is compulsory to register for VAT in order to import goods into France, because being registered for VAT will give you the right to revert charge the import VAT.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Michael. Now, moving on to the next session. I mean, there's been a lot of innovation happening in logistics, not just with new technologies and processes, but obviously with many new skills that are now required. So the people you need to hire today to manage your supply chain are not really the same people as the ones you used to recruit 10, 15 or 20 years ago. So we're going to have a quick update by Christelle Rondel from NFI on the jobs market in the Hauts-de-France region currently. And then we will have Bérangère Bravo from Michael Page. So you all know the global recruitment consultancy Michael Page. The good thing here is that, I mean, they have really local teams based in Lille for the Hauts-de-France region. So people who genuinely know the jobs market trends in the Hauts-de-France region. And Bérangère is the expert in supply chain specifically. So they're going to be able to give us an update on all that. Now, Christelle, on to you.
Thank you, Artus. So we just saw that it was not really compulsory to set up when you would like to work with France. But obviously, when you decide to have activities in France, one of the key for successful activities is the right workforce. And our partner from Pôle emploi is one of your dedicated partner for finding the right people, along with Michael Page. Next slide, please, Joanna. Just to say a few words about Pôle emploi. It is a public institution. It means that it's financed by the state, but it works as a private company. And it aims at paying employment benefits for job seekers, but above all, it aims at helping job seekers to get back to work and help companies to find the right person at the right place. Next slide, please. Next one. Yeah, we can stop to the previous one. Yeah, just rapidly regarding only logistics, we have something like 46,000 job seekers. So we have a large pool of people specialized in logistics for positions just as manual job picking, forklift drivers, handling, and so on. But on the whole, we have something like 400,000 people looking for a job in the region. Why is it important to mention it? Because Pôle emploi can train these people who are not really in logistics first, but Pôle emploi can help these people to work on the logistics side. Sorry, next slide, please. And how do they do that? Next one, please. Next one. Yeah, I will focus on 3 main methods to help people to get back to work. There is the simulation recruitment method, the immersion period, and the pre-hire training. What does it mean? The simulation recruitment method is based on the assessment of the candidate's skills and motivation. For example, are they able to meet deadlines, work as a team? Do they have the abilities for such jobs, even if they are not on the logistics side? And this is a method which has been used by XPO, for example, because they needed truck drivers. And as you may know, it's very difficult to find such job seekers. So by simulations, they helped XPO to find the drivers. There is also the immersion period. So it aims at helping job seekers to discover a position because sometimes they don't know if they would like to work in logistic picking order, for example. So they can try the position for a certain period of time, and the company can also test. So it's for mutual benefit, so that the employer can be trained and the employee can be trained, and the employer can check if his future employee is good for the job. And also there is the pre-hire training. It is to check that the employee that will join the company has the minimum required skill. And the employees can be trained, and this training is supported by Pôle emploi, and the future employee can benefit for 400 hours of training paid by Pôle emploi, actually, and not the employer. I can give 2 examples of company which benefited from the help of Pôle emploi. There is Safilin. They are involved in flax mill and textile production, and they wanted to start a new production with a special machine. And in the region, or even in France, there were no employees able to work with this machine because it was considered as a lost job in France. So the Pôle emploi international team went to Poland because this job still existed, and they studied the position. They studied the abilities the employees needed to have, and then they organized a training in France, and they could test employees. And the employees that had a good evaluation had a job interview with the company, and this way the company could recruit 22 people actually to work for this special new production. And I will end with the example of Dixon Constant, a textile company, which needed 150 employees, such as weaver, warblers, rowers, and also, again, it was a lost jobs. And Pôle emploi did the same exercise with the future employees, and Dixon Constant could hire 150 people this way. So next slide, please. Next one. And I will end with Euralogistics. Euralogistics is a cluster. It's a hub, excellence hub in the region for logistics, and it has several missions. It helps companies to network. It also helps connection with ports and the platform. It has also training session, a warehouse school, when people can train and companies could test new way of working. And it's also the leader for the International City of Logistics. It's a place, it will be a place of 10 hectares when companies can set up logistic activities. And it will offer many services to companies set up in the region. For example, Supply Tech, which is an application school to train people in logistic. There will be a logistic factory, which is a research technological laboratory. And there is a business park and also an incubator to help to the creation of logistics to startups in the logistic field. Okay, so thank you for your attention. It will be all for my side.
Thank you very much, Christelle. Now on to you, Bérangère.
Thank you, Christelle. Thanks for your participation, and thanks Business France Invest and North France Invest. Let me the opportunity to share with you about the great subject of supply chain. Just start a few words of introduction and presentation of Page Group. Next slide. So you may know about the group Page Group, as we are born in England 40 years ago. Our strength in recruitment is that we are able to support our customers in all their needs of staffing and recruitment, internationally, but also locally. Next slide. And it is one of the strengths that we have is that we are really able to have a local and regional intervention, and each consultant is really specialized by activity. Just for my example, I joined the office 6 years ago to develop a network and recruitment in supply chain, thanks to my own experience in supply chain profession. Previously, I was supply chain project manager in different retail organizations in north of France. And this technical knowledge helps us today to really support our customers in their needs of recruitment. And maybe next slide. Just a few words about our commitments and how important it is for us to have a sustainable approach in every step of our processes. Next slide, if we focus on supply chain. Next slide, key figures for France. I think what's important in these key figures, it's the number of jobs in supply chain, transport and logistics in 2022, which is 2 million. And in the next 3 years, there will be a growth of 500,000 jobs per year. So it's really a market where we have to focus on. And it represents 23% of Michael Page's recruitment in France in supply chain manager. On the next slide, we are very lucky to be in north of France to develop the supply chain activities. And I have a good illustration of that. I recently met the transportation manager for the company Rocket, the global leader in especially food and ingredients. And he explained to me the diversity of transportation that he was able to develop for the Rocket company because they are based in north of France. Of course, he could develop road and sea transportation, but also with production sites in North of France, with warehouses in North of France. He could also develop multimodal through rail or barge. And this situation helped us to really have experts in terms of transportation solutions, and also developed and test a solution which helps the company to sell all over the world. On the next slide, there was also a strong impact of mechanization and digitalization on job position in supply chain. One key figure, according to the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, around 16% of existing jobs are expected to disappear in the next 15 to 20 years because of mechanization and digitalization. And we have to take this into account in our recruitments, and especially in the recruitments in supply chain, where we now are focusing on really experts profiles with strong competencies, and where we can see that the jobs and the profiles of the candidates are really evolving. On the job market and recruitment, the trends in Hauts-de-France, what we see is that the most required profiles are three types. First, manager, operations director, and logistics site director, but with really strong industrial competencies. I have the example of the company La Redoute, and you may know La Redoute as a retailer. Now they developed strongly to e-commerce, and recently they switched from a strong manual warehouse to a full automatized warehouse here in north of France. The impact on that was really on the skills expected for the managers, and we switched from a pure logistic manager to industrial manager with experience in industry. And also for the first level of managers, we oriented our search to engineers and not only logistic competencies, because an automatized warehouse is really close to an industry processes when we are looking for performance or for teams management. So that's really a strong requirement that we have now for our logistics site director. It's to have the industry experience. Same for the supply chain manager on small industry. And also required profiles are the customer service and the logistic coordination with a really customer-centric approach, not only to deal with the customers, but really to care about the customer experience in logistics. And that's the main of the requirements that I have that I had since 3 or 4 months is really focused on customer service developments, oriented customer experience. The most penurious profiles are project manager and logistics studies. During the last 10 years, the industries and the retail had to work on the transformation from the logistic to the supply chain, and really everybody's still looking for project managers. Also, most penurious profile is about the demand planning and S&OP managers. Again, it's linked to the fact that we switch from logistic to supply chain, and with a very will to have a full view from the customer demand until the productions and the deliveries. And also, as you may know, most penurious profiles, it's customs, and really increased by the Brexit and by the needs of customs. But the good things in north of France is that we have a strong school for customs here in Tourcoing. Profiles in growth, as I said, transport manager, transport and distribution, not only about the green logistics, even if the green logistics is something really strong required, but also with the will to develop new approach, as I said, for example, with barge with rail. So that's really required by the companies. And also the lean continuous improvements manager, same as the site director. It's to have a link between logistics and industry, and not only being on the day-to-day activities, but have this industrial point of view with long-term improvements. Next slide. As we developed the expertise of our profiles, of course, there is an evolution of the salary. The project manager and organization and technology, there is a strong increase of their salary here globally in France, but also in the north of France. The same for the supply chain manager, for the lean manager also. And we had the opportunity to compare the salary in industries versus the salary in logistics. And the industry did a gap with the salary quicker than the logistic, because the industry understood maybe the need of experts, and now in the north of France we have to increase our level of salary also in logistics to be sure that we are online with the markets, and then we can recruit the good people. So strong increase, as I said, in lean manager, in transportation manager, and also in customs manager, because what is rare is quite expensive. And they trust us in northern France for their activities in recruitment, in logistics and supply chain. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Bérangère. So I mean, that was a very interesting presentation. And on the cross-canal point, quick point of information for those who are not aware yet, we have, I mean, the biggest project in the region currently is the Canal Seine-Nord Europe project, which is basically about building a 107-kilometer canal between the Seine River in Paris and the Escaut River in Belgium. And that's going to massively connect through canals and waterways, the whole Paris region with the whole waterways network in the north of Europe. So that has a huge potential from a logistics point of view, especially green logistics, as one barge can transport the equivalent of up to 200 lorries. So very important indeed. And a very apt transition to the next speaker, because the La Redoute, the automatized La Redoute site that Bérangère talked about, is actually based in Evalley. So Evalley is it's the largest logistics park in Europe. And I'll obviously let Brian talk about it, because he works for Brookfield Asset Management. So Brookfield, as some of you may know, is a tiny asset manager with just 500 billion euros worth of real estate across the world. So and part of that is obviously Evalley. So now on to you, Brian, to talk about Evalley and the overall solutions you provide.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Brian Badia, and I'm an asset manager for Castagnac. And today I'm gonna explain you the very basics for the good reflexes to have when you want to choose a location, especially in north of France and all across France. All right, quickly. So I'm gonna quickly introduce you who is Castagnac, but I had an amazing introduction, so it's gonna be quick. I'm gonna explain you also what is Evalley. And then I also highlights the reason why choosing these projects. And after we'll go more in depth on each of these reasons, and it will give you some of the good reflexes and caution points to have when choosing a location in France. All right, so very briefly, we are Castagnac. So Castagnac is a joint venture between Brookfield Asset Management Fund, which is the second world biggest investment fund, and they went up from 500 billion to 800 billion in 2 years and a half asset under management, and a local real estate French company called BTIMO. These two companies did a joint venture and created Castagnac. So we are an investor and a real estate developer specialized in logistics, and we act as the operating partner of Brookfield for its logistic division in France. Great. So this is a quick overview of some assets we have all across France. We invested more than 200 million euro last year just in terms of logistic, from existing warehouses to from sale and leaseback to existing warehouses to land plots. And one of our main assets is Evalley. So that's going to be the next slide. All right. So very briefly, Evalley is located in the north of France. It used to be a military airbase of 320 hectares, so about 3,200,000 square meters. We've converted this airbase, this entire airbase, into what will become Europe's largest European hub. We obtained a building permit of 550,000 square meters for warehouses. Among these 550,000 square meters, in a 3 years gap, in a 3 year period, actually, we built 250,000 square meters of these warehouses, and we have major tenants such as La Redoute, or such as American companies that settle their European distribution centers, such as Nike, Levi's, Jordan, Converse, and Ralph Lauren, and other luxury brands such as Chloe by Chloe and Daniel. We gonna go up to this to this site to up to 700,000 to 1 million square meters, and we are one of the only sites that will be directly linked and connected to the Seine North Canal Europe that we just talked about. All right, so now when talking, we can go up to the next slide. When talking to our clients and prospects on why they should do a build to suit in our sites or rent some spaces in our warehouses, you will find below some of the main reasons that we highlight on why choosing Evalley for them to settle in France. So we're going to go over them very quickly. We have, of course, the strategic location. The location is very important. The fact that we're nearby, that we're going to be multimodal, that's the second point, and that we have 5 highways near the sites. The size of the land, in that it is a constructible land. I'm going to come to that also afterwards. The available labor force that we had an amazing presentation about. We can go up to the next slide. The flexibility, the property tax, the subsidies, and of course the environmental aspect, and the fact that we are, for example, carbon negative, meaning that we produce more energy than we're going to consume, and this is a very, very important image and key points as of today politics. All right, so now let's go more in depth. So first, the location. The main point for you is to define your bear center. Does your location, are you going to deliver in France, in Europe, or in the world? Just so you know, today's trends for many retailers is to cut expenses and to consolidate their warehouses into hubs, either reverse logistics hub, distribution hubs, or both at the same time. North of France allows you to do both of these. Then you got to make sure that your warehouses is located near highways and it has the proper infrastructure if you wish to receive or deliver your goods through waterways or railways. No matter what, make sure to have a close access to highways. This is mandatory no matter where you settle in France, in Europe, in the world. Then be aware, because many municipalities, usually municipalities led by environmentalist party, are not logistic friendly. And thereby you will either struggle or see yourself denied any building permit or environmental authorization. So you're going to waste time and money, whereas you could have just selected like the right places. Then you got to also define your requirements and criteria. Very important. If you want to install an heavy process inside your warehouse, forcing you, for example, to build a 30 meters high-rise warehouse, make sure that you are allowed to do that, because not every location will allow you such a construction. If you aim to build a factory, make sure that the selected site has the sufficient water and electricity supply. And then, of course, the last one, you got to understand your timeline. Certain type of projects or development takes times. This is not the same regulation as England. So be aware to include the right schedule in your business plan. Now, let's get into the regulation and some very important key points that some of you presents had the pleasure to encounter. We call about the ICP, so the facilities classified as environmental protection. Let me quickly explain. Each product belongs to an ICP. Your ICP, so the number, its numbers, will change regarding the type and quantity of product stored and it would have a direct impact on the building infrastructure, fire resistance, sprinkler system, and other technical specificities. A warehouse, the warehouse do not need the same fire constraints if you store textile or flammable gas such as deodorant. Or if you store freezing goods, for example, with temperature controlled temperature, it's not going to be the same requirement for your warehouse. And some can store this type of products, some cannot. So make sure that you know what ICP you needs and where to get them and how to get them, of course. Then we got the ZAN. So with the new regulation, as of today, we are not able to build on agricultural land. So basically, we have to choose brownfield. A brownfield is a land that has been previously been built on, such as industrial wasteland, disused factories, oil buildings, military airbase, and more. The consequence is that it triggers a scarcity of lands and it makes it more complicated for you to choose the right location because you have to go on existing ground. Then we can go to the next slide. Then the recruitment, I'm not going to go over the points again, but I'm going to give you an example. Make sure that where you're going to settle, nearby you got a strong labor force and workforce available for logistics. To give you an example, a few years back, we answered a tender for Amazon because they wanted to do a build to suits, so a dedicated building for them on Evalley. And the first things they asked us was not about the price, was not about the highways. It was about, they asked us, can you tell us how many employees are in a 30-minute drive radius from your site? That was their main concern because they know that they're going to use a lot of employees and they're going to need a lot of help from companies that we just heard. The next one.
Just one minute. Just 1 minute left for information, Brian. Go ahead.
I'm going to go very quick though. All right. Then you need some flexibility, expansion. As any functional company, you aim to grow and expand yourself. So make sure you are in an area where you can expand yourself. What you can see on the screen is actually a building we had in Amiens, so in France, where we built 84,000 square meters. And as you can see on the right, we always try to get an expansion area for your tenants to grow, because moving out is very costly and complicated, and you can optimize to the best your logistic and supply. Second point is the taxes. Not going to get back to that, but make sure to be aware of property tax. Property tax can vary from any cities, and it can make a huge impact. You can go up to 3 euros to 15 euros in property tax, and it will change your entire business plan. Then you got, of course, subsidies and financial aid, but business loan will be the best qualified to help you out. But this is also a very key advantage. And the last slide, sorry, I have to hurry up a little bit. The last slide is, no matter where you go as of today and today's regulation, make sure to choose a site that has environmental certification. We usually, in France, the main one is the BREEAM certification. Make sure to have at least this certification when you choose a site. Mandatory. And the next point is the bonus point. If the warehouse or the building you choose has the correct requirement for you to ask for to be custom bonded, you will gain a major treasury gains, because basically you're not going to pay the custom tax and you're going to postpone the VAT as we've seen. So just to finalize the last word, all these arguments that we presented are the ones that we introduced in some of our sites, such as Evalley. but make sure that no matter where you go, you pay attention to all these key points, and you're gonna you're not gonna waste a lot of money. And if you got any further question, you got my contacts right after, so don't hesitate to call me or send me an email.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Brian.
Bye.
So it's a very important site indeed, but as he mentioned, they own other sites, and there are many other sites in the region. So now on to me, let me just quickly introduce one concrete example of one company who decided to set up in the Hauts-de-France region. And just by taking you through their business model and their own requirements, it really shows how you can use the region as your ideal gateway to access European markets. Next slide, please. So that company is called USleep. It's basically, next slide, yeah. It's a British mattress producer, and also, sorry, so this slide is just like an overview of the top 10 British companies who set up in the region. And as you can see, there's a really strong diversity of sectors with pharmaceuticals companies like AstraZeneca and GSK, fast-moving consumer goods with Unilever, insurance with L'Olivier Assurance, which is the local branch for Admiral Group. And in total, they account for 170 sites and 13,000 jobs. So next slide, please. So USleep basically had the following constraints. There are two sites in the UK were unable to cope with increasing demand, and they had to deliver to EU clients as soon as possible. Next slide. So they got in touch with us early 2021. They were referred to by another British company set up in the region, Dixon Constant. And so basically, the main argument in terms of EU market access that we put forward is the fact, as you can see on this map, that if you take a 300-kilometer radius around Lille, you have 78 million consumers with annual purchasing power of 1.5 trillion euros. And so basically that means just half a day's truck drive, a huge market to actually access. Next slide, please. And so in terms of the actual requirements that USleep put forward to us, so there were mainly 5. The first one was having the right building, 10,000 square meter, that could be available and up and running by the end of the year. Very important and urgent requirement. Next slide. And so here what we put forward is basically the cost of industrial sites in our region, which are summarized on this chart. And as you can see, on average, we're about 24% cheaper than European competitors, but we're twice cheaper than Paris, for example, and even 3 times cheaper than London, despite being really close. So in terms of cost and availability of space, it was a very important argument for us. Next slide, please. So the second requirement was really the integration of logistics on site and obviously the access to efficient infrastructures. Next slide. And so what we put forward is our really dense network of infrastructures. I mean, as you can see on this map, 2 airports, a dozen highways, including the main A1 highway between Paris and Lille, which is crucial in terms of which is heavily used by trucks. But thankfully, as I said, we'll have the Canal Nord Europe, which will take roughly a similar route. And the idea in the medium term for the region is to offload many of the trucks to put them on barges, because that'll make logistics in the region, but also across European logistics much more efficient, or at least, I mean, for all companies who use that route. We have the internal port in Lille as well, for barges and waterways. And we obviously have our very dense and important port ecosystem at the Franco-British border. So the Port of Calais specialized on roll-on, roll-off logistics, the Port of Boulogne for fish, and the Port of Dunkerque, which is specialized on containers and with global interconnections. And that whole Franco-British border is huge. It's massively used. I mean, it's 5 million trucks annually, 22 million passengers, and they facilitate 300 billion euros worth of trade between the UK and the EU annually. So obviously, when Brexit happened and the border was reestablished, we had a bit of work to do. But the main solutions that were put forward, including the smart border that RMB talked about, allowed us to manage to preserve the fluidity at the border, including with a very special connection between the Port of Calais and the Port of Dover. Next slide, please. So the third requirement was to have a very skilled workforce, and we've already talked about that in at length, and it just underlines how important it is for any company setting up. Next slide, please. So you've seen already all the key data and examples showed by Bérangère. Here are just a few other points of information, and the fact that across the region we would have around 70,000 job seekers just in logistics. So I mean, indeed, from a broad perspective, it may be an inconvenient. I mean, it may be inconvenient to have a relatively, I mean, a higher unemployment rate relative to other regions, but at least you would have people that are ready to take up the jobs that you're creating, unlike in other regions where the unemployment rate is 3.5% and you have literally no one available to recruit. Next slide, please. And in terms of HR costs, so on average, we're about 1/3 cheaper than our European competitors and about 13% cheaper than French competitors, which is also an argument to take into account, in addition to lower real estate costs. Next slide, please. So the fourth requirement was to be close to the suppliers. And here, as you can see on the next slide, we do have a really dense ecosystems in many different sectors. So if you just take the rail industry sector, for example, there are close to 10,000 jobs and more than 200 companies. In retail, obviously 120,000 jobs and with more than 160 companies. And similarly for automotive, logistics, healthcare, and many other sectors. And that's just to show that any company in any of these sectors would arrive and find a really dense sector with not just clients but also suppliers, and they would be able to find a place very efficiently from the beginning. Next slide, please. And the fifth requirement was to have operational support. So here, and again, as you can see on the next slide, the role of Nord France Invest is really to act as a one-stop shop for any company who either has an investment project or who just has issues with its trade with European clients. And as I said before, we'll be using the UK Business Centre set up in Lille with the support of the UK Department for Business and Trade, and along with our partners from the British Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Lille, who are a very dynamic team, to manage all issues of all UK companies who just need to continue accessing European markets and clients and can do so using our region. So we would basically use our whole network of contacts in local authorities with local clusters, local companies. We would be facilitating administrative processes with our setup contract, for example. On average, this reduces the delays for administrative authorizations overall from around 12 to 14 months down to 5 to 7 months, which is huge savings in terms of time and allows facilitating any industrial projects. And we would be also hand-holding you throughout the different processes to secure financial support, either from the region or from the state, and we can help in recruiting your first employee. So next slide, please. That's that's just to summarize the overall timeline and just to show how quickly this project has actually been executed. So we were put in touch early 2021 with USleep, and by the end of the year, they had their site up and running in Dunkerque, which is a big multimodal site, and now the company is up and running and doing great. So yeah, so any similar project, either investment or sort of broader trade projects, would be happy to help. So that's all for me. And now I'm handing over to François Risp from EOL, which is basically a real estate consultancy specialized in logistics. And so they're also in that market about finding sort of logistics sites that work for any company, regardless of their needs. On to you, François.
Thank you, Artus, and good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be with you this morning to speak about the logistics in the Northern France region. A couple of things that I would like maybe to say about EOL Group, which is the first largest independent industrial and logistics broker in France. It's also the third largest broker in France. And we do have, in addition to our, I would say, key business being broker, we do have additional activities. One of them is project management. And as you heard Brian speaking about the La Redoute project, I wanted just to mention that we were the project manager of La Redoute on the Evalley project as well. The second activity that I would like to highlight is our international activity across Europe. We do have a network of partners under the brand of IRS, which is managed by EOL. And just for your information, our partner in the UK is Carter Jonas. So this being said, maybe a few things that I would like to mention about the logistics in the Northern France regions. First of all, this region is the second largest logistics region in France, right behind the Paris market, which is remarkable when you think about the fact that, for instance, the Lyon region is the second largest economic region in France, but it's by far not the second logistic region. So there's a lot of potential in the northern region of France in terms of logistics availability, building, I would say, range of building size, which ranges from 10,000 square meter at the bottom all the way up to 100,000 square meter. And that is very remarkable for a couple of reasons. First of all, because if you look at the European map, you will find out that the logistics activity has become a very challenging business in many ways. And the main reason is because there's a very thorough scarcity of land and scarcity of buildings. Whether you are in France or in Italy or in Germany or in the Benelux or even in the UK, I believe, it's very hard to find an available building for logistics needs. And that's what makes the northern region of France unique, because there's a lot of available supply for potential tenants in this region in different locations. And if you look at the vacancy rate across Europe, it's probably around 2%, 2.5%, I believe. In France, it's about 2.7%. In the Benelux, it's about 1%. In Germany, it's below 1%. In Belgium itself, which is really the neighboring country to the northern France region, it's about 1.2%. While in northern France, it's about 8%, which is very important if you are thinking about lending your business in continental Europe. You will find available supply in this region, and that makes it unique. The second thing that I wanted to highlight is clearly about the price of logistics, the rental price, and I think a couple of former speakers highlighted the fact that doing business in northern France is actually reasonably affordable, and that's the same with logistics. If you look at the average rental price, it's about in the range of 3.7, 3.8 euro per square meter per month, to compare with something in the region of 4.5 euro per square meter per month in Belgium. I think in the UK, you must know that in London it's about £25 per square meter per month. In the Midlands, it's between £8 to £11 per square meter per month. In the Netherlands, it's about 5 to 6 euros. In Germany, it ranges from 6 to 11, 12 euros. So you can see with 3.7 to 3.8 euro per square meter, it's a very competitive rental price that you may be able to find in different locations. So I think these two elements, the availability of space, which, and we're talking about 800,000 square meter of existing standing building that are available right now. In addition to that, you may also want to speak about the speculative development projects that are in the pipeline, and we're talking here about 1.2 million square meters. So in total, it's nearly 2 million square meters of space that will become available by year-end to potential customers. There's a further 400 to 500,000 square meter of development pipeline that is going to probably occur in 2024, 2025. So you can see that the pipeline of potential offer, whether it's the existing or the future offer, is actually very, very large compared to what you may find in other countries or even in the Paris region. The Paris region vacancy rate is in the region of 1.8%, which is about 4 times below what it is in the northern France region. The last thing that I wanted to mention, and I think it has been already highlighted by Béranger, It's the cost of labor and the cost of qualified labor for logistics. And in that region, clearly, the northern France highlight is in a way outstanding compared to what you may find in the Paris region or in Belgium or in the Netherlands or even Germany, which are the neighboring markets. So it's an important aspect to remember here. And maybe a few I would say highlights on a couple of emblematic projects. We already talked about the Evalley project. Brian obviously mentioned that to you guys. I also wanted to talk about Dourges. Dourges is a multimodal logistics platform, 300 hectares of land available, 350 to 400,000 square meter of existing building. It's a multimodal platform that is connected to Rotterdam in less than 24 hours, to Antwerp in less than 20 hours, into Dunkerque in less than 15 hours. So a very well connected platform to these key ports that I just mentioned. And tomorrow it will be also connected to the Canal Europe that was mentioned earlier on by a couple of speakers. And therefore, you will be also connected to Paris through a barge, I would say, connection. Another one that I wanted to mention is Calais. Calais is indeed probably a port that you guys know, but it's what is not well known is that Calais is the second largest roll-on roll-off port in the world, which is kind of important to know. And there's a 100,000 square meter development project in the port of Calais that deserve to be actually known. It's a very nice supply of logistics that is going to be available in the very short term. I also wanted to mention Douvrin, which is also multi-building logistics project, which is also harboring parcel delivery building, which is very convenient for e-commerce activity for the northern France region, but also for, I would say, the Benelux region as well. So with this, I will turn to you, Artus, and thank you for your attention and remain available for any further questions that you guys may have.
Thank you very much, Francois. That was very interesting and efficient. Now moving on to the panel discussion, which is our final session, and we'll try to keep it relatively tight to leave a chance for questions from our participants. So first of all, starting with Masad. So Masad Sahin Baizal, who works with BOI Trading, which is basically a clothing company based in the UK, and who have most of their EU clients are in Germany, but they decided to use the Hauts-de-France region as their gateway to access these clients, in particular by clearing customs and VAT there. So on to you, Masad, as to the challenges you faced over the past few years and the solutions that you were able to find.
Hi, everyone. As you kindly summarized, we are a clothing company based in Manchester, and we do import all our clothing from all over the world. So it was a huge challenge for us after Brexit, because till last minute we didn't even. And we had orders to ship out when January 2021 hit. And so we got in touch with RMB, and we are actually using their fiscal representation. So we have a French VAT number now, an EURI number. So we are shipping SDDP to our customers, because most our customers wouldn't accept to clear the goods themselves in EU. So this was the solution that we found back then, and it has been working very well in the last 2 years.
Perfect. And so I remember from our discussion yesterday, you told me you had about 6 million euros sales to Germany, right? And you're gradually recovering that as you basically managed to, I mean, since you've managed to sort your customs and VAT issues, right?
Exactly, yeah, because most of our customers are retail groups. So most of them we were delivering to their individual stores previously, but due to Brexit, it's not as easy anymore. So for us to be able to get them all shipped over and clear in France, it's still allowing us to do that now.
Okay, and that's really interesting because I mean that's what we saw in multiple sectors, from fishing to clothing, which is basically before Brexit, people can basically send parcels, even like tiny parcels and consignments from the UK to the EU and vice versa. Now, the main consequence of Brexit is that you've had a professionalization of trading between the UK and the EU, whereby now you're not shipping directly to stores. You have to go through central entities before distributing out to clients, right?
Exactly. And that's also like obviously increased our costs because we used to offer better prices to our customers, because now we have to use once we clear in France, the goods are being transferred over to a distribution center in Germany, so that from there it could be sorted and distributed to all the stores that they need to go. So obviously it was a challenge on both ends for our customers and for us as well. But we are kind of getting there.
Okay, perfect. So do you have any warehouses in the north of France, or are you shipping like directly to that distribution center in Germany?
We are shipping direct to either customers, whoever has their own warehouses, or a distribution center to be, to distribute to the stores. We don't have our own warehouse.
Okay.
Not yet anymore.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much, my side.
Sure.
Now, our next speaker for this panel discussion is Sylvie Jens from Siuch. So Siuch is basically a company specialized in building technologies, processes, and systems to increase efficiency in warehouses. So Sylvie, maybe you can tell us a bit about the kind of solutions that you put in place in warehouses to radically increase the efficiency of logistics, and that really speaks to the overall theme of innovation in logistics that we've talked about all along this webinar. So you're on mute, Sylvie.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the organization. Can we start with slide number 2 of the presentation? So Siuch is a family-owned company created in 1966, and we are well known for automatization within the facilities of the customer. We started with the mail orders companies, a famous one as previously named, as La Redoute, Damar, Verbaudet, Blancheport, and so we are preparing their process of before shipping to their customer in B2B. And in 2001, the big difference in the process of Siuch was the creation of what we call a WCS, is a warehouse computer system that is easy to connect with the most famous RRP program or WMS program of the customers. And our WCS is able to, we have 2 licenses in the WCS. We are able to do the preparation, or we are able to do the picking, just the conveying. Can you go to slide 3, please? Yes, a few numbers. So in 2017, we were around 13 million euros. Last year, we finished over the 31 million euros. We had a big growth the past 5 years, and the COVID had a very positive effect on our activity because everybody wanted to have an automated line of preparation for their orders. Can we go to next? So our mainstream of business, so we have 4 types of businesses. So in preparation of orders in carton box or plastic totes up to 25 kilograms. By being specialized in this process, we have a big connection in the pharmaceutical and cosmetic industry, in the retail and e-commerce industry, and we are also working directly with some logisticians that needs to provide a solution to their customers. And our last range of business is being able to integrate storage system, a well-known storage system as Exotec, Intrio, or Alstef on the market. Our expertise is so we're expert in designing and global intralogistics solutions. And we manufacture our own conveyors in Tourcoing in our factory here downstairs. You can visit the factory. You are more than welcome to visit our factory. And we are also an independent integrator of material. We really insist on the point of being independent because we always want to be the best advisor to your solution. So we are not in an exclusive partnership with Exotec or AutoStore. We always want to be able to provide you the best after analyzing your data and your flow and all the information you send us. Can you switch? Our organization, so we have three companies within one. We have C Solution that involve all the engineers, IT engineers, sales, and marketing, and drawing the lines, all the studies. We have the CH Industry, which is in charge of so research and development for some specific machinery, and also producing our conveyors. And CH Service is in charge of installing the facility we were lucky to win and to install. And also we have now a full dedicated maintenance project, maintenance services for 24 by 24, 7 by 7 days a week to duly follow you daily in your targets in the numbers of parcels you need to ship per day. So here we're going to switch because it's a traditional step-by-step presentation of a project once it comes in. This is more if somebody would have a lead to give us how we will work, but this is not the aim of this meeting, I think. You can switch the slide. This is also for the project. Okay. Some people that are trusting us. So you can see here some famous names that are working with us. For example, the pharmacist GFAR. We are now opening the second site and we are preparing the third site to be open. We have Ingram, that is a famous company all over Europe, and we are lucky to install a brand new facility, a brand new line. It's an old building, but it's a brand new line in close to Rugby in England. So we had to go through the process of shipping DDP, being registered with the VAT fiscal identity over in England. So we did the other way around as the one you were explaining before. To come to France, we had to do this to go to England. And so as you can see, we are whatever in e-commerce or preparation or food business, but food as a drive. And so we are not handling food as meat because it's a different process and different technology. And you have to be, you have to fulfill some norms like the food test and food contact. And we are not producing inox conveyors. So we are really dedicated to the cartons box, plastic totes, and preparation.
Thank you very much,
switch.
Sylvie. Okay, do you still have slides, or are you done? Or
just very quick. That's how
so maybe
the solution we are
conclude,
able to integrate. And also next slide. That's all the people, all the functionalities on the line that we're able to integrate and manage with our WCS. And the very last slide is our WCS for the picking and conveying. How we interface with the most famous European WMS of the market.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sylvie, for this very, very comprehensive presentation in a very short time indeed. Now, last but not least, we have Michael Goebel from Hanon Logistics, which is part of a Hanon group, a transport group in Ireland with very substantial trade flows between Ireland and the Netherlands and facilitated through the Hauts-de-France region. So a bit of a case in point of how a company can use the Hauts-de-France region for to manage the transport flows. So Michael, on to you. If Michael is still with us, hopefully he is. So whilst we find Michael, is there are there any questions from the audience? Any participants? I mean, feel free to to raise your hand, and Joanna will open your mic, and then you can ask your question, whether it's a specific question or just like a point of clarification or anything like this. Joanna, any news of Michael?
Michael, you can now. Normally, you should have access to your camera and your microphone.
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, everybody.
Hello,
Good morning,
Michael.
everybody. Sorry for the delay.
No
yes, very well, thank you. Yes, we are from Hennen Logistics. We are part of the Hennen Group, and we are based on this moment in Arras. We built a new warehouse there. Also, we got a warehouse in Renchies, Poeldag, near Rotterdam, Dublin, and Belfast. The reason why we choose for the north of France is that we can do the shifts with the truck in one time from Arras to the last point of UK to get the boat. It takes us around 24 hours to come there. So we got a transit time for a company. The service is loading on day A and loading on day C in every part of Ireland. And that's what we're doing. And before that, we got in Renchies and we couldn't make the time because the trucks were in delay. And also, it took too much time to get on the ships and on the Calais-Dover ferry. So what we do mostly is transport from flowers, plants, vegetables, meat, frozen, all the parts where you can transport to Ireland. And from the France, we do around 50 trucks a week to Ireland. From Holland, a little bit more, 250 trucks a week to Ireland. And from, let's say, from Ireland to Holland, also 200, 250. And from France, or from UK to France, also 50 to get it done. So this is a little bit what we are Hennen Transport doing.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Michael. So concretely, what are you doing in Arras? And just as a reminder, Arras is right at the center of the region. It's basically 45 minutes away from Lille by train and car.
We are busy to get reloading from the goods from, let's say, from Morocco, Portugal, and the south of Europe to one of our biggest clients is the Lidl, and transshipping the berries and the strawberries and all of that. Because after the Brexit, let's say the South European drivers don't want to go to Ireland anymore because the UK with the problems with the documents. And we do it then, and we reload the stuff and bring it into the depot in Ireland, the 4 depots from the Lidl.
Okay, perfect. So you basically ship all the different products that you end up exporting in Ireland through Arras. So you centralize all these products in Arras before shipping them off to Ireland, right?
Yes, it's correct, 100%. That is one of the reasons we're doing that. The same we do in Holland, the same we do in Renchies. That's the main business.
Okay, and I mean the very interesting thing, I mean, when Michael and I discussed that yesterday, is that so the trucks they would have in Ireland would bring basically, for example, meat to the Netherlands, and then these trucks would go back from the Netherlands to Ireland with plants, vegetables, fruits, etc. That means that their trucks are always full,
Yes.
which is a huge advantage in logistics, as everyone here would know.
Yes, it's one of the things, you know, the simple thing, keep your trucks full with everything. Then you save money. Driving with empty space costs only money. And our, let's say, our trucks coming from Ireland, tipping or in France or in Holland and in Germany, and go directly the same day back again to Ireland again. So we keep them moving the whole day. No wasting time.
That's very interesting indeed. Yeah, that's very interesting, Michael. So, well, thanks a lot, Michael.
No, thanks for you.
Are there any questions in the audience? I mean, feel free to raise your hand, and Joanna will open your mic. As you think about the potential questions you may have, I mean, just to summarize overall, so the way that the Hauts-de-France region can be your ideal gateway to access European markets, it's available warehouses, cheaper warehouses relative to other places, available workforce, skilled workforce, more than anything, especially in the new technologies that are used today in logistics, and cheaper than in other places workforce. All of that combined, which leads to a lot of efficiency, including with tax and customs services, which can be very helpful to continue accessing European markets. So if there are no questions from the audience, well, then I think we can draw that this webinar to a close. So thank you very much to all the presenters for their time and efforts in preparing the presentations and in presenting. Thank you very much to everyone in the audience for attending. We will send via email the details, well, not so the link to the replay of the webinar, if you want to see any specific part of it again. We'll also send the details for the Short Straits Users Forum Port of Calais tour on the 18th of April, as well as the launch of the UK Business Centre in Lille on the 19th of April. And from then on, you can look at the details and register to anything that may be of interest to you. And that's all from us. So thank you very much.
Okay.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
And
Thank
see you
you.
soon.
Thanks.
Have a nice day. Bye bye, everybody.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.